Okay, so we're live and recorded. So welcome everyone to Strategies for Career Advancement in Biotech. I'm Markell Morris, and I'm going to be moderating the panel with you this afternoon. I'm a career coach, and I'm the owner of Futures in Motion, Inc. And I help professionals go after their career goals with clarity and confidence. I offer career guides, one on one career coaching, and groups that really get my clients into position for careers that they can get excited about. And I thank you for joining me and my colleagues. We're going to have a great discussion on how you can find careers and positions that use your best talents and bring you some satisfaction in your life and your career. And as you know, there are a lot of moving pieces to career changes or advancing your career. But my goal is with my colleagues is to help you to break it down into steps that you can take really easily. We're going to share resources. We're going to encourage you on your next career move. We're going to have some time for Q&A. You can use the discussion feature there on, I think it's on your right-hand side, to post questions or comments, and we'll definitely get to as many of those as possible. So now I'd like to introduce or give you an opportunity to meet my experts here, and we'll start off with Josh. Can you introduce yourself briefly and describe how you help career changers and job seekers?
Totally. Welcome, everyone. As Markell said, my name is Josh Rock. I am the Talent Acquisition Manager for Nuss Truck Group here in Minnesota, completely unrelated to the biotech industry. But where I come to the table is I run an international job advice chat over on Twitter called Job Hunt Chat. I'll post a link here in just a second. But I've been speaking to undergrads, grads, and professionals about job seeking advice for over a decade. And Markell asked me to join the group just due to my connections to the healthcare biomedical research audience coming out of my previous role to coming to NUS. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to give you guys some tips and tricks to helping not only find those careers that you want, but also further them by finding ways to engage with those HR professionals that hold those careers right at their tables. So I look forward to talking to you along the way.
Okay, I think I'm next here. I'm Lesah Beckhusen, and welcome to this wonderful panel today. So I've been in the field for 25 plus years. I started out as a career coach, helping people to figure out what they want to do, and primarily working with undergraduates through graduate students to help them find their sweet spot. What are you really good at? What do you love to do? What are the right career direction for you? So, but along that path, shortly into that path, I developed a online transferable skills assessment. Actually, it was a manual version called SkillScan. So that's been around since 1987. It's a suite of online assessments that provides a comprehensive report of your greatest strengths within 6 competencies and a hierarchy to what I'm do best, what I don't want to do, all color coded to competencies like management leadership skills and so on. So again, in this particular age with, the increasing importance of technology, expertise, which is what you are been working on to develop your careers, you're also selling your transferable skills, your soft skills. So that's what I'm all about, is pulling those together to make sure you get the offers and you build the resume to get your foot in the door.
All right, I think I'm up next. I'm Dr. Terri Horton. It is a pleasure to be here today. And I'm a work futurist. And that means that my expertise sits at the intersection of the future of work, artificial intelligence, and the impact of people and organizations. And in the process of that, I am a coach, a consultant, an international speaker, and an author of the most recently published book as of last week, Force Majeure, Don't Let the Future of Work Be Your Force Majeure. It's a futurist guide to boldly thriving on your terms in the future of work. So while my background is not in biotech, my background is really centered on helping organizations and people as they plan through development to do so with an eye for the future. So as we move through our discussion today, I'm going to share tips with you and really kind of fine tune that around how you begin to think, act, and perform like a futurist as you pull through these pieces to decide what your career will look like as you design it.
Thank you. So I'm really excited for you all to share your tips because you're coming from, different perspectives, but they all play a role in where people are going to go next. Um, you have expertise in really guiding people into their future, dream jobs. So we're at a place we're in 2021, and everyone is talking about this great resignation. I think that a lot of you have been hearing about this. What is this? So we've just experienced this huge life and career disruption. It's a global disruption, and it's caused a lot of people to really take a closer look at their career direction, what brings them satisfaction, and how they can make an impact. We want that for our clients, right? So that's why we're here. But there are a lot of moving pieces. Under the best of circumstances, there are a lot of moving pieces to advancing your career, finding the right fit. It can be confusing. It can be overwhelming. People don't really know where to start or where to look. So let's help them out by talking about some trends. So Terri, you've done quite a bit of research on trends in the workplace, how employers or businesses are responding, innovating, and what that means for job seekers. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those trends that professionals need to be aware of?
Certainly. I think your point about the Great Resignation is really, really spot on. And we really can't look at that as an isolated issue. We really need to kind of pull back a bit. We started to notice changes in the context of how organizations were shifting their perspective of how they view and engage workers all the way back to 2019, when the corporate brown table, which is kind of like the God voice for corporations, decided that corporations really needed to shift from a shareholder focus to a stakeholder focus. And then we saw this huge emergence of this whole, kind of topical content around how we humanize the workplace. And so when we think about trends in that context, it should be no surprise that we're experiencing a great resignation triggered by the COVID pandemic, and that is that people have had an opportunity to reassess their lives. So I would say to job seekers, if we just isolate that one trend, the timing right now is fantastic for candidates and workers to really think about how they want to craft their future. You have more runway around decisions around who you want to work for and what that work looks like, whether it's remote, fluid, on demand, and what type of experience you want. And so the timing is great to design that. You just have to know that you have that leverage and power. Come to the table with a solid personal brand and a host of other deliverables that really kind of hammer in on value that's ascribed by the employer, and to design it and live it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that today job seekers are recognizing that they do have the power to design a career that they love, and that they really have the power to have a meaningful life that involves a satisfying career. So Josh, you are on the ground, you work a lot with job seekers across industries, across roles. From your perspective, what do you think that they should be tuning in on?
That's a great question. There's a lot that they should be tuning in on. What I tend to see oftentimes with candidates in any industry across the country and across the globe is usually they're sitting right here. What they're forgetting about is all this extra stuff way out here. You get into this, education track that we talk about. You're going to go get your degree. You're going to go get your master's degree. You're going to go get your PhD. And then the switch flips about trying to find that career. And they have this tunnel vision of what they think is out there. With this great resignation and the change in industry, the way the companies are changing how they hire, there's all this extra stuff out here that they have no idea exists. It starts by, how do we look for jobs? How do we connect with recruiters, connect with companies, follow brands, follow cultures, and then using that information, find those little pockets of jobs that we've completely missed. There's been so many times in my career in engaging and working with different companies and hiring that people don't think about certain jobs in a sector they're unaware of. Perfect example. I was in healthcare for about 8 years, and I'd go out and I would do corporate positions. So I'd go hire for finance and communications. They're all thinking about doctors and nurses. What they're forgetting about also is clinical research, clinical trials. The positions that our students and our graduates that are in the session today are coming out of college with. They may or may not be directly interested in going into healthcare or working with patients and all, which is completely understandable. But healthcare innovation starts with biotechnology careers, and that information, that research, that study, that scientific evidence that they're working on each and every day, bringing that into those areas. And so what I challenge job seekers to do is to think like a recruiter, think like me. So reverse engineer things. How am I going to find you as the candidate? I do it all day long. How are you and the candidate going to find me and my opportunities? Think differently. One example I use a bottle of water. Crazy enough, right? Too often, we as candidates are thinking about from outside of the bottle in. What are we looking at? What we forget to do is look from inside out. What are we missing? How are people seeing us? These are the trends. These are the ideas that candidates really need to think about as they're trying to find out where they want to go next, where that next 3 to 5 years of their career is going to take them, because on average, in a post-recession market, that's how quickly they're going to change jobs, sometimes even a little bit faster than that. So all of these things just kind of come together. Use the things that work for you, add some little pieces to your search, and a whole new world's going to open up.
Thank you. That's so important. And it kind of reminds me of two distinct areas where they can get started. One is really taking the time now to reflect on what it is that they're bringing to the table and then learning how to present it. So Lesah, can you talk a little bit more about how they can actually do that? You've created a tool. And then Terri, if you can talk a little bit about, once they get a little bit more clarity, how can they present their brand to the job market? So Lesah.
Yeah, I like the way that Josh talked about kind of this whole idea of reverse engineering, because in a way, if you think about things through that perspective of the recruiter, they're looking for two things. They're looking for a position fit. Can you perform this role to meet my objective? So what are your skills and your strengths that you're bringing? And that's the things you can do. Those are action verbs, right? But then you bring your technical expertise, your scientific knowledge, so on, all computer skills, whatever, you're bringing those to the table to make that happen. So that's what they're looking for. They know what they're looking for, but what are you bringing to the table? So what are your strengths? What do you do well? What do you love to do? Yes, you have this great body of technical expertise, but can you facilitate teams and meetings and deal with different stakeholders and understand their needs and bring a consensus to some decision making? Can you organize project and manage the project from start to finish? What about your communication skills, oral, written? You're going to have to present papers and briefs and reports. Are they compelling? Do you have good influence skills? So again, these are these verbs that describe strengths, that when you know what you can do and then what you do it with, your content knowledge, and then how you do it, sort of the way you do it. Are you very results oriented, thorough, highly detailed? These are the three sets of skills that employers are looking for. They're hard skills and soft skills. The transferable skills and the qualities, those are the soft skills. Those all fit for position fit and then culture fit. They are equally important. So you need to start with self-assessment. So that's where SkillScan helps with identifying strengths, but you need to know your interests and your values, those three pieces minimum, to be able to evaluate any position to see if there is a basic fit, about 60%. And then you've got a way to okay, now I can target my resume and work on branding.
Lesah, you're so spot on with that. In the work that I've done with life science PhDs and postdocs and biotech professionals, they come to, they start when looking at their career options, very kind of like Josh was saying, very narrowly looking at it from just the science lens. But really and truly, when all things are equal and everybody knows the same thing that it's about cultural fit. And so your content and your subject matter expertise is important, but equally important, like you said, is the soft skills that you're bringing to the equation that are going to allow you to work with other people to move forward the business goals. And Terri, I know you have expertise in personal branding. That's in fact how we first met, with talking about personal branding, and you're a pro at that. So what are some ways that people can really, just elevate their brand to get noticed in the marketplace?
Definitely. This is a great build from Lisa's point. And I really want to say this: part of defining your personal brand, some of the work that you need to do at the pinnacle of this is decide who it is that you want to be. To Josh's point, stop looking very narrowly and don't isolate your options in the context of how biotech students traditionally move into the workplace. You don't have to work in the science. Maybe you want to work and start on the business side, maybe with startups. But the first thing you do is just think about who you want to be now, 2 years out and 5 years out, and what will that require? And what does the market demand? I would encourage everyone, as you think about building out your brand, dive into tech, whether it's blockchain, non-traditional tech, also for biotech. So whether it's blockchain, AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, big data, artificial intelligence, which you work with some of that, but definitely delve into it and learn it on both sides, on the science side and on the business side. And then once you do that, you start building out your level of expertise. So one way to build out your expertise is to use one of the easiest platforms on the planet, and that's LinkedIn.com. Make sure you have a solid background, solid profile on LinkedIn, and optimize it. You can join up to 99 groups, join 99, tied directly to the work that you want to do and the work that's tangentially related. And then participate in the conversations, ask questions. The other thing that you need to do is to establish yourself as an expert. So not only doing that on LinkedIn by creating content and posting and engaging other members on the platform, but decide where else you can extend. Create a YouTube channel, a Clubhouse account. Where can you isolate? Sometimes it's about isolating into a niche area. What niche area that makes you excited about the work that you do? Where can you extend that? And how can you carve out a very distinct brand? You also may want to connect with advisory firms. I've worked with 2 global advisory firms, GuidePoint Global and GLG is the other. Connect with advisory firms. They pay you. You set your hourly rate and they pay you. That will build on your credibility as an expert. Join other advisory boards. Write a book. Create content. Create a following. And do that on both sides. Create content and start building out your brand so that you can leverage back and forth from B2C and B2B.
Mm-hmm. I love those suggestions. And if we have those in the audience who've achieved a master's degree and or a PhD and postdoc, they have publications already. And so think creatively about how you can leverage that content. How can you translate it into a format that other people, the general public, can be interested and excited about? And when I've worked with PhDs and postdocs, I would always ask them, the so what, and not to, be offensive or anything like that. But if you were talking with someone who's not a subject matter expert, how could you explain this to them in a way that they would understand? And then that is one excellent way to think about ways that you can get your work out there. I think also in terms of presenting your qualifications and elevating your brand, participating in events like this, but also becoming a speaker at events like this. And this is a great way to get visibility for your expertise. You can, a lot of the written stuff, but you could, organizations, events are always looking for presenters. And once you kind of get on the circuit, you're on the circuit, and opportunities just continue to come your way. And we have podcasts, what have you, but really, like both of you said, or all of you have already said, the foundation is really understanding what it is that you're bringing to the table, that you want to apply, and how you want to make an impact with what you're already bringing to the table. So those are really great suggestions. And I also want to underscore that oftentimes when I'm working with my clients in technical fields, and especially with advanced degrees, they get really stuck on, well, what's the process for someone in my field? You know what? The process is the process. Whether you are in biotech or whether you're in business or you're in finance, you're in education, if you're entry level, mid-career, experienced, established, the foundation is understanding what are your goals, what are your selling factors, what you bring to the table, and your network. And everybody has to have those elements to advance their career. So I would encourage people to really be thinking about how this can apply in their personal situation.
Markell, can I add one other point?
Absolutely.
For students? This may be helpful for you as well. So one of the things that I did when I was completing my doctorate at USC, when I picked my topic, the topic was going to be around the future of work, but my dissertation topic literally was the role of higher education in bridging workforce skills gaps. And it was contextualized around the impending workforce skills gap crisis that we are in currently. But as I went through the program, every opportunity, I didn't know where that would take me, if that makes sense. And so every time I had an assignment in a new class, I tried to dig into various aspects of the future of work because it's huge to decide where I would leverage my expertise. That took me to the HR piece of it initially in the context of the impact of shifts in recruitment due to artificial intelligence and how that would impact candidates. And so keep pulling through as you move through your classes, as you move through your very specific areas. In many cases, we can't just publish our dissertation. Why? Because no one wants to read it. So, and the format, it's not appropriate. So figure out, my book was born out of research done in my dissertation, if that makes sense. So figure out how you can pull pieces through, and you're kind of, I call it killing two birds with one stone. Also think about what additional plugins, I call them, you need. So in my example, my background initially was in media, not in education, not in STEM or anything like that, or in data science. So as I decided to build my expertise in that space, I knew that I needed to get additional credentials. So I went to MIT and got a certificate, micro-credential in artificial intelligence business strategy for leaders. I went to Cornell and got a micro-credential in data analytics. So as you start to fine tune where it is you want to land, and hopefully where you're landing is not just where traditionally students have landed after they complete the degrees in this type of program. I want you thinking towards the future. Where is biotech going? What other areas will it penetrate and infiltrate and shift and drastically transform? And so if you can focus on being on the cutting edge of change in the future and start building your brand out in that way, that gives you a lot of legs and a lot of runway.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, Terri. That's something that I wanted you all to chime in on. When I'm working with clients, the number one way they see to open up career opportunities is to get another degree. Now, when I'm working with clients who are, 15, 20 years into a career, or already have a master's degree, already have a PhD, the thought of going back and getting another degree, while they might be open to it, it's really not something that they might be attracted to. So for those who are currently, pursuing their education, you gave them some really good advice for how to be strategic about their path right now. And also you gave a little bit of tips about those who are already out there and already completed their degrees, the idea of upskilling or microskilling. So I'd love for you, Josh, to chime in on that. So from the recruiter standpoint, tell us what your view is of those micro degrees, education in any form or fashion.
One of the things that I tell students of any level, professional or undergrad, is get out of the classroom. You actually have to work, shocking as that may be. In order to make money, you actually have to do a job. So getting out and working, I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's okay to work in your industry, in your sector, while you're going through those educational programs, those advanced degrees, because all of that stuff compounds on itself. And I saw this coming into, being in healthcare, I saw professional students. They had all these credentials behind their names, but they had no work history. That is going to be a detriment to you. Employers want to see what you've done to contribute to the business, not just your academic credentials, your professional credentials. So at some point, cut the tie and get working. That's one of the big things that I can tell you. We look at, different elements, different ways. Lesah talked about how to, sell not only your educational component, but how your skills can, work in a number of different ways. The one thing that you have to look at, or how you look at that from my side of the table as a recruiter, is how am I being seen? How do the recruiters see me? How do the recruiters find me? And so when, Markell, when you were talking just a few minutes ago about, adding that content or posting your research to your LinkedIn, one thing that really technical people will do is they'll have this huge paper or this huge report and they'll put it out there. Don't do that. Chop it up and put it in incremental segments, because what happens is it's the frequency that people are following you, the frequency at which you're publishing content or putting it out there. That's what's going to keep them coming back. I mean, when I worked in radio coming right out of college, we would do these long advertising campaigns to hit goals that our clients were looking for. As a candidate, you're going to do the same thing. It's about the repetition, how often people are seeing you, how often they're seeing this great, valuable content that you're putting out there. It can be one piece, one big, huge, report. But if you drop it in little segments here and there and do it more frequently, they're going to see you more often. That's how they're going to come back to you. A great way to look at it, this is going to be really simplified for you, is for those that are, have gone through the American education system. When you graduated high school, okay, for some that was a long time ago, for some not so long ago, you graduated, they gave you this leather-bound book. A yearbook, right? When was the last time you looked at your yearbook? It's probably sitting at mom and dad's house with all those signatures that you got that said, hey, have a great summer. Look to seeing you in the future. You haven't opened it since. You can't do that with your social channels. You can't do that with your personal brand. Get all those signatures once and put it away. That doesn't work. What you have to do is keep going back to that. Keep putting out content so people keep coming back and looking at you. That's one of the biggest ahas. Like I put in the discussion post, what are the ahas for you out of this session? That should be a big one. It's dropping stuff on a regular basis, continuing engagement. Go ahead, Lesah.
So I want to build on that because, in working at UC Berkeley, these MBA population for 20 plus years, we went through many cycles of ups and downs in the market. And of course, people wanted to make major transitions at the worst possible time. So one of the things that we would do is say, how can we brand? How can we get an edge that will move everybody out of the way and you get to the head of the pack? So I had one of my students got an internship with a VC. So he wrote a paper on ag tech. And then was through that, the VC made an investment in that product, right? So now he's got ag tech at the top and he's got a PowerPoint on it because he had to write a report on it of somebody that we helped wanted to get an investment banking. So he had to showcase that he could write a report. So he did a PowerPoint analyzing a company. So we did little things like this. And this was also real helpful for international students, showing that they understood applying sort of the business or the technical expertise to a specific target that showcased them. Went right at the top of the market. It was attached to their resume and sending in and applying for a job to showcase application. So I'm trying to think, we're using a lot of big words. You got to think creatively, you got to think about the box and think about your audience. So you've got a resume with all this great content, but what can you do for me? What have you done that you can actually show me, prove it to me? So It doesn't have to be big. It could be a 5-page PowerPoint. So think about your audience.
And another technique that I use with my clients that is so simple as they're, trying to bring the pieces together, we go through the process of, exploring, envisioning, what have you, and they say, okay, I can see myself doing this. And then we go and we use the tools that are available, LinkedIn, Indeed, job descriptions, going to the company websites. We get a job description and I say, copy and paste into a blank document, this job description. And then let's come up with examples for how you have, not only carried out this task, but done it very well using the STAR approach. And then we can come up with ways to communicate that on your resume and interviews, but also in your visibility strategy that you're using. And that makes it really concrete for a lot of my clients.
Markell,
Terri, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I want to talk about this aspect of the process too, and that is the role that artificial intelligence plays in candidate assessment. Excuse me, I have a cough for some reason. It plays in candidate assessment and also in the resume review process and in the interview process. I'm going to drop a couple of links in after I finish talking, so that may be helpful to you. But here's what I want you to think about. Statistics say that 70% of resumes that are submitted for jobs are rejected off the top. The format is bad. The content is not reflective of the skills, qualifications, and such that employers want. 70%, that's huge. Of the 30% that remains, this is very painful. 75% of those are rejected. Why? Not that they don't meet the qualifications, they fail to tell their story the right way. So let me just pause there for a second and say this. The format of your resume is everything. It needs to be very clinical, non-sexy, and plain. And please don't submit CVs as a replacement for resumes. It just does not work. And so there's a tool that you may want to use. There are three of them that I'll post for you. One is going to be really helpful in letting AI work for you to take a look at your resume, and it will look at not just for keywords. We are just so way beyond keywords at this point when we talk about candidate selection, assessment, and selection. It is using artificial natural language processing to see if you are going to be a good fit, cultural fit for the organization, and that you speak the same language in how you describe who you are and what you do. That's one piece. The other thing is what we've seen is a huge increase in the use of AI systems in recruiting, particularly over the course of the last 15, 16 months because of COVID and remote social distancing, remote working, and all of that. So you're going to have to become very, very comfortable with being interviewed, scanned, and assessed by these systems. So, or I'll give you one tip, and I'll again pipe it in there for you. Ori, when you are doing a video interview, HireVue is one of the most prolific vendors on the market. They are assessing you psychometrically and biometrically. That is in the context not just of how you answer the questions and the caliber of your questions, but also in the context of your verbal communication, your body language. And also it's taking a look at everything that's going on in the background. The role of the psychometric analysis is to assess and infer as much about you as possible. Yeah. Biometric analysis is facial, eye movements, right? Voice assessment, which is why a tool like Ori comes in handy. The other thing that I want you to think about, particularly for the types of roles that you'll be applying for, are complicated assessments. So I'll drop links for you. Again, I repeat after I finish, but I want you to get used to taking neuroscience-based assessments. You can download, there's apps that you can download to practice on those. The whole process has become less human, more cognitive, and more of an infusion of these systems, so that by the time that you hit a human, they have assessed a larger pool. These systems allow them to assess a larger pool of candidates and drill down and distill it down to very, very specific metrics around candidate caliber. So understanding the role of AI is critically important in this process. And so I'll drop those for you as well.
Thanks.
I'll drop a video.
I think it's important for them to understand where technology is is playing a role in the hiring process, but people are still involved in the hiring process. Josh,
Yeah.
we tell job seekers, to connect with recruiters and hiring managers. So in addition to, really getting solid on the technical components, we know that the people component is equally important. Before, you get into talking about how to best do that, can you just give us describe or tell us the difference between recruiters and hiring managers, or the kind of people that job seekers are going to encounter?
Yeah, I'm going to do that in just one quick second. I know one of the attendees actually dropped in one question that I wanted to answer right away. They asked about age in hiring. Age, it shouldn't play a factor really. But here's the thing. If you're young, guess what? We can discriminate you in the fact of your years of experience. So know that. So you have to then increase the volume of, or show your proof of what you've done, so you can counteract those that may have more experience than you. So age shouldn't really play a factor. Certain age groups are protected in the United States, so know that ahead as well. But if you have that understanding, you'll know how to at least then present yourself a little bit differently. If you've got greater questions about that, feel free to drop me a LinkedIn connection invite. We can message back and forth, and I can get you some more information on that. To Markell's question about the different types of audiences that you're going to interact with throughout the process. Every company is different. I mentioned that actually in the discussion notes a little while ago, not to really worry or get too ahead of yourself when it comes to processes by the companies themselves. Every company is going to have a completely different process. My interview process from start to finish is 2 interviews. I've been in ones where it was 10 interviews. I hate those. If a company is going through 10 interviews, they don't know what they're doing. They're putting way too many hurdles, and they're going to lose talent because of it. But as a candidate, don't worry about that. If you're excited about the opportunity, go along for the ride. Enjoy the ride as it goes along. Keep that engagement, keep that excitement going. It's hard to stay excited through all of those steps, but if you're really excited or if you really want it, just go with it. Let it happen. Let the flow happen naturally. But to the people that you're going to interact with, you're going to hear from sourcers. These are the people that are out there looking for you, doing computer program efforts to find you through the massive humanity that is out there in resumes and alumni lists and schools and this and that, trying to find who you are and bring you into their organizations. You're going to deal with recruiters like I used to be, and still am, that are kind of refining what the talent is that are out there. When Terri talked about how many resumes come in and how many are actually interviewed, I just posted a reply to that. 10% of applications actually get interviews at best. So you need to increase the size of your funnel to get there. Recruiters are going through their processes to whittle that down to get to a manageable number, so leaders aren't spending upteen hours doing interviews to find that one hire that they want to get to. You have to remember that this is a process to get to the best talent for the operations, for the role. It's not always going to work out in your favor. So don't be afraid of the word no along the way. Just use that as fodder towards the yes that's destined for you down the road. After the recruiters, you may end up with HR managers or directors that are going to be part of the internal panel processes that are going to happen. You're going to have the hiring managers, assistant managers, staff level. Every different type of layer is put in for a process. The best thing that you can do is make friends with each one along the way, because if it's not this role that you're getting into today, it could be the next 3 years from now. Yeah. Heck, 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from a mammography technician that I talked to 4 years ago. She still had my phone number. She called me up and said, "Hey, Josh, I'm looking for another job. Can you help me?" I'm like, I'm not even there anymore. But you know what? Here are the names of 3 people that I know that are hiring for those types of roles today. It's about the impact. It's about the connection. Mm-hmm. So, every step that you interact with, get to know who they are, what makes them valuable to that organization, make a connection, because you never know what door that could open down the road.
Josh, I think that's great insight for job seekers. And it reminds me of how all the pieces that Terri, Lesah, and you are talking about, is it's really about being strategic, and not getting hung up on all the minutia and all the details. Should I have a 1-page resume? Is 5-page CV? All of these things. Those are things that get people distracted and overwhelmed. But I think if a job seeker, a career changer, career advancer is being strategic about it, they're taking the time to learn about themselves and learn about the opportunities. They're taking the time, like Terri said, to really maximize how they're presenting their qualifications and understanding the role that technology plays in that. And they're taking the time to form and cultivate and manage those relationships. So if their strategy covers all three of those places, they're going to put themselves in the best possible position to get the kind of jobs that they want. I have a question here that I want to pose to all of you to chime in on from your respective areas, because this is a common experience, especially those of us who work with people who have advanced degrees in doctorate degrees in the technical fields. And this is very common. So they've made an investment in their expertise. And they have this wonderful, not just a credential, but they have a doctorate degree that demonstrates that they have this, high level expertise in a particular area. They're looking to change directions quite a bit, and they're not really interested in obtaining another degree if it's not necessary. But how do they enter a new field? What advice would you have for someone like that? How would they get started?
Entering a new field actually can be easier than you think. It's all about how do you make the parallels from where you are to where you're going. I'll use myself as an example. I went to school for political science. My field of study was constitutional law, and here I am in HR. How does one get there? I went from constitutional law, studying in school, to a 16-year advertising career, to now being a talent acquisition manager. How I got there is using the practical workings of my education and my experience to the different roles I was going to do. So the abstract thinking, the problem solving that constitutional law taught me, I used into advertising, because every company that I talked to, every HR professional that I sold to had a different problem than the person that I called before. So I had to find ways to make solutions work for each one of those different audiences. From there, I got to understand the background of HR and the problems that they had connecting with candidates, which led me to falling into my current role, which is in recruitment and HR. So I was able to take different elements, turn it on its head just a little bit, and make myself applicable to each one of those roles differently. You can do that. It's how do you find that connection between those and then sell it? I talked about this actually in the discussion notes. Somebody asked about having separation lines in their resume, and I said, it's not about the design, it's about the content. If you can take your background and pivot it just a little bit to what that company is looking for in that role, you'll be fine. But you need to make sure that it's concrete, that it's not fuzzy, and you're not, being willy-nilly with that content. Say, hey, I studied this. This was my research, but through that, I really learned data analysis and presentation to be in leadership or another role that's applicable to that role. So you can do it very, very easily. It's just how do you sell that content?
You really do have to be adept at. You have to learn how to present your qualifications in a way that makes sense to people who are hiring you or who can refer you. And that's really the onus is on the job seeker to do that. Terri.
I was going to add this. This is something that you have to really wrap your mind around. So when you are transitioning into, let's say, private industry, let's say you want to take your degree and you want to move into private industry, you want to work with startups, or let's say you want to work in a new area that is emerging by way of disruption for biotech. So what I want you to keep in mind is that you stay tied to the qualifications and experience for that role, and you have to catch your breath and realize that in doing so, your PhD, your doctorate may be a value add, not the calling card. Does that make sense? So for me, similar to Josh, non-traditional background. I started out in media. How about that, Josh? media, marketing, advertising, TV, print, online, all of that. And then I switched over to the HR space. So, and I have 2 master's degrees, each of which would have been applicable when I moved over to the HR space. But it wasn't necessarily that I had the master's degrees that did it. They wanted to know what experience I had specifically in HR. So because I did not, I had to go out, create a business and start building that up. Yeah. Then I had to go and get a plug-in. I had to get a micro credential from Cornell. I got another one from Cornell in human resources. Then I had to get human resource industry credentials. Most people had 1. So to beat it, I got 4. Yeah. So then I wanted to move, as I moved closer into the work that I do today around the future of work. Here's how people recognize me. And I'll tell you this. Wow, she's a future of work expert. Okay, she's worked with these organizations. And she's a doctor. Did you hear the and? So when you're switching over, you will have to, when I was moving into HR, the whole notion of employer branding and employee experience, I took all of that I knew from marketing and applied it in an employer context. The problem was so it took a while for the market to catch up with that. But to be able to get traction in the space, I had to start building out my own work there. You may need to do some of that and building out your own work in the space that you want to move into and creating your level of expertise. But do not, it requires a bit of humility with that. But oftentimes the doctorate will not be the linchpin for the opportunity. It will be the competitive value add.
I want to add one thing to that. As a career coach, being in this field for 30 plus years, I can just say this is very, very difficult. What we're asking a person to do is we're asking them to make this bridge. That's why there's career counselors out there.
Yes.
That's why there's PhD career counselors. Their jobs are to help you make transitions. And I presented at the graduate program in NOLO, 2 years ago. And that's who I was with on this group. These are the people that work with PhDs that want to make these transitions, right? So they can sit there and say, oh, you're thinking about you want to work at a startup. You want to work in technology. You think you want to do this. Let's look at your transferable skills. Let's break out that job you want to do. Let's look for the connections. So you need that brainstorming. You need that objectivity of somebody who's not you to help you do that. So I want to point out it's easy for us to say this. It's a very challenging thing to do to switch function and industry. And I've worked with both. Always what I would say, try to do first, stay in the same industry, switch function first. Okay. Build on that knowledge, that industry knowledge you have, and try to get into a new function. It's very difficult to do a 180.
Lisa, that is so important. Thank you so much for making that point, because I think it might have gotten lost otherwise. We're speaking from the place of expertise and guiding people through this process, and it's not something that, just sit here and learn about yourself and make connections and update your resume and get the job. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen as quickly as that. And for a lot of our advice to really work, you need help. You really need help. It's very important. And like you said, I've been involved with working with PhDs. Actually, I met the organizer of this particular career fair many years ago when I was at UCLA working with PhDs and postdocs in the life sciences. And I, presented at conferences there. And I talked about these same kinds of concepts with life science PhDs and postdocs, so that they could get started with imagining what's possible for them, taking a step back and really, sorting out not only the skill sets that they have, the knowledge that they have, their high level competencies, but what in that they actually want to apply and how do they want to use that to make an impact, and then connecting that with the opportunities that are out there and the companies that are out there. What often happens is people skip to looking for the jobs without having the clarity, or they skip to collecting all the credentials. Also, I don't want to get lost. And Terri talked a lot about picking up the different credentials, but Terri did that when she knew what she was going towards.
Right.
She didn't. She
Yes.
didn't. She didn't just start collecting credentials and then try to make it work. She already knew what she took the time to really get clear about where she saw herself in the future, and then the delta was what is missing, and then she filled that gap with experience and credentials to close that gap. So we've had a really great discussion, and we've addressed a lot of the questions that I see, that people are providing. One question that someone has that I would love to get your input on, I know what my advice would be. So the person is still finishing their degree, and they wanted to know at what point should they start their job search?
Already responded to that question in the discussion notes. I always tell candidates or students coming out of any school, any program, 6 months is what I advocate. 6 months away from graduating or completing any program. Reason being is because you don't know what the hiring cycle is going to be for any company that you're wanting to apply for. So if you wait too long, you may miss out on opportunities. If you go too soon, the worst they can do to you is say, no, you're not done with whatever it is that the requirement is. But then what that does, that's knowledge, that's power for you. Exactly. It's exactly right. They know you. You can always reapply and say, hey, you know what? I applied before, but I wasn't done with my program. I am now. Let's do this. So 6 months out is the usual frame that I give candidates of any program. It gives you time to lead up, so you don't have that big transitional window afterwards. I mean, let's see how bad it is for some. Yeah, they graduate in May and they don't get a job till November. Why? Because they weren't prepared. So if you start sooner, you can always say graduating at May of 22, and the recruiters, the employers will respect that you're being forward and trying to find opportunity. They may just bump your start date back until you clear or until you graduate. So roll the dice, start a little earlier. The worst that anybody can do to you is say no. Are you out anything when they say no? No. It just gives you more knowledge, and knowledge is power. It's understanding.
Also, could they start by doing a project for the company? I mean, that's one of the things that companies, we have a need right now. We know I have 15 hours a week that I could start doing some project work toward this goal and get some of the work done for you while you're even still in process of hiring. So that's another way to think about it.
I would add to that too. The other thing that you can do is start creating profiles on high-level job boards. Catalent is an example of one, for an example, that recruits high caliber candidates for executive roles across a variety of areas. Healthcare is one of the industries that they specialize in. And so it would be the same as me telling a marketing student before you graduate, I want you to create a profile for yourself on Upwork so that you can start building out, building up, getting clients and building out your expertise. I want to add one other point. And Markell talked about networking. This is what I tell students all the time. You need your network before you need it. So to Josh's point, start looking for jobs 6 months out, start building your network out at least 6 months before. Ideally, what I tell students is by the time you walk across the other side of the stage, ideally, I would love for you to have at least 5,000 contacts on LinkedIn. Why 5,000? Yeah, you're going to be applying for a lot of jobs. There's a question on the job board about how do you find, the jobs, the hidden job board. You're going to need to be able to leverage the power of reaching directly out to people. You won't always be able to see in a job listing who the hiring manager is, but you can certainly, if you have been connecting to groups, posting, commenting, you can curate content. If you're afraid to create the content or you don't have the confidence to do it yet, or you're not sure what to say, curate content around your area of expertise and post it. That helps to build it as well. But you need that network, that digital network and your physical network so that you can tap into them as you move through the process of finding your way. And it's nothing wrong with emailing, building up your connections. I did it for years. I was about to graduate from USC. Hey, I'm a future work expert, and I graduate with a doctorate in blah, 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 blah. My research is centered here, and I'd love to be able to connect with you synergies moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So use some language that makes sense for you, but you start reaching out in advance and building up those contacts. It takes a long time to get quality contacts. So start that immediately.
I want to address
Markell, if I might, just for one quick second, I want to piggyback on Terry's comment there. You guys want an easy way of doing that? I'm hearing a round of applause, I think. The easy way to do that is to actually use the alumni tool on LinkedIn. Yes. Look at your college that you're at, look at the program that you're in or the degree that you're getting, and you're going to find all of these people that went to that same school that graduated 5, 10, 15, 25, 30 years before you, and you send them a connection invite saying, hey, my name is Josh. I'm also graduating from USC with this program. I see you've built a great career in this. Would you be willing to connect with me? I'd love to know more about how you got to where you are, how you shifted gears in your career. Though again, the worst they can do is say no or not respond. And are you out anything? No. But if you can and you can, you're all the better. Then you ask them, hey, do you know if there's any opportunities in your organization? Who else can I meet? It's so easy. It's right in front of you. LinkedIn's done the work for you. All you got to do is harness it. While you're sitting at home watching Outer Banks, find 10 more. Easy.
I just want to point out one of the flip side of this is where this technology, I appreciate, Terry, every technology tool you've mentioned, and Josh, this is still a people business. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, people are going to hire you because they like you. Chances are you're from the same school or you have some things in common. And so I think you can whittle down that whole big world of options and narrow it really small in a little circle for yourself by connecting to the people you know. Find them on LinkedIn, but just who is in your immediate circle. Make it easy for yourself. Start right here. Yeah. Start here. Don't go to the internet. The internet is not going away. People know you. Hey, I'm finished. I'm looking for this kind of a role. Give them a clue for this kind of a role. You know, I know you've been really happy at your particular company and they're in the field. You know, how can you support me to kind of learn more about what the opportunities there are, people I should talk to? Start with people.
Lisa, you're spot on with that. You know, sometimes we can get ourselves overwhelmed by all this big thing that we have to do. And I always tell my clients, start with the known. You know, start with those people that are closest in proximity to you, because that's easy. I'm working with a client actually now who's in, you know, the biotech space, and we've been strategically exploring, and the person has tapped into their alumni network and, you know, the different friends that they know who are in the biotech space. So armed with some clarity about where they see themselves fitting, what kind of roles they're interested in, and their close connections, they've been able to see a path forward. And this kind of, there's a question in there or comment in there about get the PMP certification and then, you know, moving into data science positions and that. And what we've discovered is that that's a huge lift from no experience to expertise, because data scientist positions are require a lot of expertise. And so to do PMP positions, they require some actual, you know, expertise in managing projects. You don't just go straight to managing projects for a major company. And so we've been able to see the interim steps. So we've identified a path towards the longer term goal of maybe getting into a project management position. And for those who are looking into data scientist positions. So starting with, you know, getting some clarity about what you want, connecting with people you already know. Those are easy asks. And then when you have connected with the people you already know, ask them who else you might be able to meet, like Josh said. So being really strategic about how you navigate through this process is really going to help you. So we're coming up to the end of our time, and I think we've addressed a lot of the questions, or at least many of the questions that we could get to that are in the chat. I invite everyone to follow up with each one of us, connect with us. We're happy to ask questions. But before we wrap up, I want to ask for each one of you on the panel, for some encouragement for our panelists. So we've woven in some strategies, some tactics, and a little bit of encouragement, but I want to end off with encouragement. So we have these job seekers who've joined us today, and they're really making an investment by being here today in their future. What's the first thing that you would advise them to do that would enable them to confidently move forward in this quest for finding a satisfying new role?
I might say 2 points. Number one, make sure that you are developing and nurturing a growth mindset so that you are not afraid to design the future that you want for yourself. It may be non-traditional, it may be different, but you will be amazed by the amount of power that you have by linking your passion, interest, expertise together and designing what it is that you want to do so that you're the architect of your own future.
I'm going to make it really simple. If you are struggling saying, what am I good at? Well, what can I really bring to the table other than my expertise and specialties? Then you need to really be clear whether you just do a web search on, free self-assessment exercises, or take SkillScan for $15 and identify your transferable skills and reach out, get help. This is a complicated process. So take one or two of these ideas that you've got today, because those are the ones that are resonating with you. Just start working on them and reach out for support from other people. That reduces the time in half when you have a support system. Other PhDs or other graduate students, career counselors on your side, recruiters, have them support you in this process. Thanks, Markell, for organizing this.
All right, guys, you guys ready for this? Get out of your own way. Quit overthinking things. Quit hating on the process. Quit thinking people are against you. They're not. We're all doing work. You're doing work as a candidate. I'm doing work as a hiring leader. I'm helping our leaders get good talent. We're all working, but we're all in our own little segment. The world isn't against you. So don't go in with that mindset. We want you to get opportunities. Go in positive, be thinking positively about the process. Know that every no is one step closer to the yes that you're destined to get. It's all good. But you got to put in the effort. You got to put in the work. It's not going to land in your lap. Those days of getting a blue participation ribbon are done. Put in the time. You've got this. And if you need a little bit of help, my LinkedIn's over there in the chat. Drop me a LinkedIn message. Ask me a question. Tell me where your struggle is. I'll give you 1 or 2 points of ways to get around it. Life will be good. Trust me. We'll get you there.
Awesome. I thank you so much. And my advice is similar to Lisa's. We've shared 50 different tactics, strategies, resources, what have you. Whatever's resonating with you, start there. Start there. You don't have to do everything all at once. One of my favorite quotes is from Arthur Ashe: "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can." That's
start.
Just start. Just do something, and then connect with people. And then connect with people. And if you don't know who to connect with us, and we will get you pointed in the right direction. You've expanded your network by 3 people.
Find me on LinkedIn.
Yes, and I've popped our contact information in the discussion chat there. And you also have the rest of the participants at this conference. If you look at the content tab, next to the discussion tab, you'll be able to see the list of all the employers who are here, all the other panelists. If you do nothing else, just connect with all of the presenters and connect with all the recruiters who are there. You're going to expand your network. And if you see someone's name in the chat, go and find them on LinkedIn, connect with them. And right there, just by attending this event, you've not only increased your knowledge about how to navigate your career, but you've also built your network. So we wish you all the best of luck in your quest for designing the career that you love and finding meaningful work moving forward. And we invite you to connect with us and enjoy the rest of this conference. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now I'm gonna stop this. There. All right, our broadcast is ended. All right.